Be me, Ashley, 26, live in a major city, got a decent job in marketing. Life's pretty good, or at least it was. This whole story starts a few months back, maybe late spring. The weather was just getting nice. You know that feeling when you walk outside and the sun's out, and you just feel like you're on top of the world? That was my default setting. My morning routine used to be a little ritual. I'd pick out an outfit that made me feel confident. Nothing crazy, just something that showed I put in the effort. I'd walk the 10 blocks to the subway station every morning. It was like a little video game. Score points for every head that turns. Not in a creepy way, just acknowledgement. A nod from the guy walking his dog. A longer look from a dude waiting for the crosswalk light. It was the background noise of my life. The city's way of saying, "Hey, we see you." There was this one guy, a construction worker on a site I passed, who would always just say, "Morning," in a respectful way. Little things like that, they added up. My coffee shop was part of it too. The main barista, a cute guy with tattoos, always had my order ready before I even got to the counter. He'd slide it over with a smile and ask about my weekend plans. Sometimes he'd draw a little heart in the foam. It was harmless, nice. Made me feel like a regular, like a character in a movie. Then, one day, the music just stopped. It wasn't all at once. It was slow. So slow I thought I was imagining it. The first thing I noticed was my walk to the subway. I left my apartment, felt the sun on my face, and started walking. But the street felt quiet. The guy with the dog didn't look up from his phone. The men at the crosswalk were just staring straight ahead, waiting for the light to change. I got to the construction site. The guy who always said "morning" was talking to his buddy, didn't even glance in my direction. Felt a tiny prickle of something, annoyance, confusion, shrugged it off. Maybe everyone's just tired. It was a Monday. Walked into the coffee shop. The cute barista was there. He looked up, but his face was blank. No smile. "What can I get for you?" Just like that. Like I was any other customer. I told him my order, the one he's made for me 100 times. He just nodded, made it, and slid it across the counter. "That'll be $6.50. No heart in the foam. I paid and left, feeling genuinely weirded out. It was like stepping into an alternate reality where I was invisible. Texted my best friend Lynn. "Weirdest morning ever. Feel like I'm a ghost." She replied almost instantly. "OMG, you too? I thought I was losing my mind." Lynn told me she'd gone for a run in the park, her usual route. She said normally she gets a few smiles, the occasional guy who says "on your left" in a flirty way. That morning, nothing. It was like she was just another jogger, an obstacle to be avoided. We both decided we were probably just overthinking it. But the next day was the same, and the day after that. The background noise was gone. The city was silent. My commute became just a commute. No more little ego boosts, just a walk from point A to point B. The gym was the next place I noticed it. I've always liked working out. I put in the work, and yeah, I know I look good. The gym used to be a whole social scene. Guys would offer to spot me, ask if I was using a certain machine even when it was obvious I was in the middle of a set, just to start a conversation. It could be annoying, sure, but it was also a form of validation, proof that your effort was being noticed. Now, it was like a monastery. Men were just working out, headphones on, eyes locked forward. They'd wait patiently for a machine, never trying to strike up a conversation. If I asked someone how many sets they had left, I'd get a polite, "2 more," and they'd immediately put their headphones back on. There was no lingering eye contact, no smiles, just pure, efficient exercise. Lynn and I met for drinks that Friday with our work friend Jessica. We had to compare notes. I told them about the coffee shop and the gym. Lynn chimed in about her dating apps. "My matches have fallen off a cliff," she said, scrolling through her phone. "I used to get dozens a day. Now I'm lucky if I get 5. Jessica nodded. She's always been the most cynical of us. "It's not just you. I went to the grocery store yesterday. The cute guy who works in the produce section, the one who always helps me find the ripest avocados, he pointed me to the bin and walked away before I could even say thank you. We sat there for a minute, just staring into our wine glasses. It was real. It wasn't in our heads. Something had fundamentally changed. "What is going on?" I asked. "Did we miss some memo?" Jessica swirled her drink. "It's gotta be some kind of backlash, some weird, coordinated thing." We started brainstorming. What could it be? "Maybe they're all scared," Lynn suggested. You know, with all the articles about not approaching women. Scared of what? Jessica scoffed. Saying hello? That's ridiculous. This feels different. It feels intentional. She was right. It didn't feel like fear. It felt like indifference, a total lack of interest. And that was way more insulting. We decided to conduct an experiment. The next weekend, we'd go to the Mill, our go-to bar. It was always packed, always a guarantee for some attention. We spent hours getting ready. Hair, makeup, outfits that were impossible to ignore. We walked in feeling like $1,000,000. The bar was buzzing, full of people. And yeah, there were tons of guys there. We found a spot right in the middle of the room, a high-top table where we'd be visible from all angles. We ordered our drinks, laughed, and acted like we were having the best time. The classic, look at us, we're so fun and approachable routine. An hour passed. Nothing. We saw groups of guys talking, laughing, watching the game on the big screens. They were in their own world. They weren't scanning the room. They weren't looking for signals. It was the strangest thing. They were just hanging out. With each other. Lynn got frustrated. Okay, this is insane. I'm going to force it. She saw a group of decent-looking guys by the bar. She walked over, pretending to need to get the bartender's attention. She stood right next to one of them, smiled, and said, "Wow, it's so crowded in here tonight." The guy she spoke to just glanced at her, gave a tight little nod, and turned back to his friend. He didn't engage. He didn't ask her name. He just dismissed her. Lynn walked back to our table, her face bright red. "He completely ignored me," she whispered. We stayed for another half hour, but the mood was ruined. The feeling of being invisible in a crowded room was suffocating. We left feeling dejected and, honestly, angry. "This is a statement," Jessica said as we waited for our Uber. "This is organized. They're trying to punish us." "For what?" I asked. "For everything," she said. "For being independent, for having standards. It's a classic move. When men feel like they're losing power, they withdraw. It's toxic masculinity 101. That became our working theory. This wasn't a random social shift. It was a silent, petulant protest from men who couldn't handle the modern world. It made us feel a little better, to have a reason. It wasn't about us. It was about them and their issues. But the feeling of being unseen didn't go away. Work became another battleground. Our office is pretty young, a good mix of men and women. The vibe used to be collaborative and friendly. A little bit of harmless flirting in the break room, guys asking you about your weekend. Now it was sterile. The men in the office were polite, professional, and distant. They'd talk to us about work projects, but the conversation would end the second the work topic was resolved. No small talk. No, "How was your evening?" In meetings, they'd make their points clearly and concisely, but they wouldn't try to catch our eye or seek our approval. I noticed this one guy from the analytics department, Mark. He was just a normal, average guy. Not a supermodel, but not bad looking. I'd see him in the break room with his work buddies. They'd be laughing, talking about sports or some new TV show. The moment me or Jessica walked in, the conversation would either stop or they'd lower their voices, finishing their chat as if we weren't there. They weren't being rude. They just weren't including us. We were background characters in their lives. One time, I was struggling to carry a heavy box of printouts. In the before times, a male colleague would have rushed over to help. I stood there for a moment, waiting. Mark walked past, saw me, and gave a small, polite nod before continuing on his way to the coffee machine. He saw me struggling and just kept walking. I was so shocked I almost dropped the box. Later, I told Lynn and Jessica about it. "See," Jessica said, slamming her hand on the table. "That's what I'm talking about. They've decided to stop performing basic decency. It's a power play." The frustration was really starting to build. It's one thing to not be flirted with. It's another thing to feel like you're not even considered part of the same social species. We felt like we were going crazy because no one was talking about it. There were no news articles titled, "Men mysteriously stop talking to women." No trending topics. It was happening in plain sight, but it was completely unspoken. We tried to change our tactics. Maybe we were being too intimidating. We tried being extra friendly, smiling at everyone, initiating conversations. I tried it with the barista. "Hey, how's your week going?" I asked with my biggest, brightest smile. "It's fine, $6.50, he said, not looking up from the register. Lynn tried to be more direct on the apps. Instead of waiting for guys to message her, she started sending the first message. She sent out 20 messages one night, witty, engaging openers. She got 2 replies, both were one-word answers that killed the conversation instantly. We were putting in all this effort, and we were getting nothing back. Less than nothing. We were hitting a wall of pure apathy. The world had been a certain way our entire lives. We understood the rules. We knew how to play the game. Now, it felt like the other team had just packed up their ball and gone home without telling us. And we were left standing alone on the field, wondering what the hell had just happened. The anger started to curdle into something else, a kind of low-grade despair. Going out wasn't fun anymore. Posting a cute picture on social media felt hollow when you knew the guys who used to flood your DMs were no longer looking. Our confidence, which we thought was self-generated, turned out to be propped up by 1,000 tiny daily interactions we had taken for granted. Now that the props were gone, we were wobbling. One night, the 3 of us were just sitting in my apartment, scrolling through our phones in silence. The silence was the point. No notifications, no messages, no invites. "I hate this," Lynn said quietly, throwing her phone onto the couch. "I feel so lonely." I knew exactly what she meant. We were surrounded by people in a huge, vibrant city, but we felt completely and utterly alone. And the worst part was, we could see the men. They were right there. They were at the next table in the restaurant, in the apartment across the street, on the other side of the office. They weren't gone. They were just done. Done with us. "We have to do something," Jessica said, her voice hard. "We can't just let them get away with this. We have to make them see what they're doing." That's when we came up with the idea for the video. The idea that we thought would change everything. The idea for the video started as a joke, almost. We were complaining as usual, and Jessica said, "We should make a TikTok about it. POV, you're a woman in 2025 and men have decided to stop existing." We all laughed, but then we stopped. It wasn't actually a bad idea. Not a joke TikTok, something serious. A video essay, a call to action. We spent the next week planning it out. We wanted it to be emotional, powerful. We wanted to articulate the feeling of being erased. We set up my phone on a tripod in my living room with good lighting. I went first. I talked about how the small daily courtesies were gone, how it felt to suddenly become invisible. I tried to sound reasonable, concerned. Lynn talked about dating. She spoke about the sudden drop-off in interaction, how it felt like she was shouting into a void. She was really good, got a little teary-eyed. Jessica was the closer. She brought the fire. She talked about toxic masculinity and the weaponization of indifference. She used phrases like silent treatment as a form of control and a collective act of passive aggression. She framed it as a serious social issue, a deliberate and hostile act by men to put women back in their place. We edited it together, added some sad piano music in the background, and posted it. We used all the right hashtags. Washter modern dating, washbar feminism, jahar toxic masculinity. Where have all the men gone? Then we sat back and waited for the wave of support to roll in. The first few hours were exactly what we expected. A lot of women commented, "This is so true. Thank you for speaking out. I thought I was the only one feeling this." We were getting validation from our own side. It felt good. We felt seen, at least by each other. The views started climbing, 1,000, 5,000, 10,000. Then the men started showing up in the comments. It wasn't the angry defensive backlash we expected. It was something far weirder. It was calm, almost amused. "Yep, looks about right. Glad you finally noticed. We've been telling you for years. You wanted us to leave you alone, so we did. What's the problem? Oh no, the consequences of our own actions." Anyway, there were hundreds of comments like this. No rage, no insults, just calm, detached agreement. It was like we'd thrown a punch and hit a ghost. Our anger and passion were met with a collective shrug. We tried to engage in the comments. Jessica replied to one guy, "So, you admit this is a coordinated effort to punish women?" He replied back in minutes. "Punish? No, it's just self-preservation. The game is rigged. We just decided to stop playing. It's not that deep." The "it's not that deep" part was what really got to me. To us, this was a massive, earth-shattering shift in the social dynamic. To them, it was just a practical decision. The video stalled at around 20,000 views. It didn't go viral. It didn't start a national conversation. It just became another little piece of content floating in the digital ocean, a small echo chamber for women who felt like us, and a source of mild amusement for the men who saw it. The failure of the video was a bigger blow than the silence on the streets. We had screamed our pain into the void, and the void had just whispered back, "Okay." After that, something broke in our little group. The anger started to fade, replaced by a dull, persistent sense of defeat. We stopped going out as much. What was the point? To sit at a table and be ignored? We could do that at home for free. Our conversations became repetitive. We'd just rehash the same points, the same frustrations. Jessica got angrier, more militant in her views. She started seeing misogyny everywhere, in every interaction. Lynn just got sad. She deleted her dating apps and started spending most of her weekends watching TV shows alone. I was somewhere in the middle. I wasn't as angry as Jessica, but I wasn't as resigned as Lynn. I was just empty. I felt like I was grieving for a world that I hadn't even realized I loved. I missed the flirting. I missed the compliments from strangers. I missed the feeling of being desired, even in the most casual ways. I had always told myself I dressed for myself, I worked out for myself. But if I was being truly honest, I was also doing it for the reaction, for the feedback. And now that the feedback was gone, I felt like I was performing to an empty theater. My motivation was plummeting. A couple of months passed like this. A long, quiet summer. The new normal had set in. I no longer expected the barista to smile. I no longer looked around the gym to see who was watching. I had adapted. I had accepted the silence. The climax of this whole thing wasn't some big, dramatic event. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I had to go to a different part of the city for a meeting. I was running late, so I decided to take a cab instead of the subway. The meeting was in a neighborhood I rarely visit, more industrial, fewer high-rise office buildings. After the meeting, I decided to walk a bit before finding a cab. I passed by a small hardware store. The door was propped open. Inside, I saw a guy behind the counter, probably in his 30s, talking to an older male customer. They were both laughing about something. I needed to buy some picture-hanging hooks, so I went in. As I walked in, the guy behind the counter looked up, and he smiled. It wasn't a flirty smile, it wasn't a customer service smile, it was just a genuine, friendly smile, a human-to-human acknowledgement. "Hey there," he said. "Can I help you find something?" I was so stunned I forgot how to speak for a second. Yeah," I finally managed. "I need some hooks for hanging pictures." "Right this way," he said, and led me down an aisle. He showed me the different options, explained which ones were best for drywall, which were better for plaster. He was just being helpful, normal. He wasn't trying to impress me. He wasn't being cold or distant. He was just a regular guy doing his job in a friendly way. I picked out a pack of hooks and went to the counter to pay. As he was ringing me up, he said, "Big decorating project." It was small talk, the thing that had vanished from my world. "Something like that," I said, my voice sounding rusty. "Just trying to make my place feel a bit more like home." "I hear that," he said, handing me my change. "Have a great day." "You too," I said, and walked out of the store. I stood on the sidewalk for a moment, holding the little plastic bag of hooks. I felt like I had just returned from a foreign country where no one spoke my language. It was such a small, mundane interaction, but it felt monumental. It made me realize something. The men in my world, the office workers, the guys in the trendy bars, the baristas in the cool coffee shops, they had withdrawn. But this guy, he hadn't. He was just living his life, running his store, being a normal human being. The problem wasn't all men. The problem was the specific ecosystem I lived in. The high-stakes, high-pressure world of urban dating and socializing. The men in that world had opted out. These other guys, maybe they were never really playing in the first place. On the cab ride home, I thought about it. We, my friends and I, had spent so much time being angry at men for changing the rules of the game, but we never stopped to ask if the game itself was the problem. It was a game of validation, of attention, of subtle power plays, and we had been master players. When we stopped getting the validation we were used to, we didn't know what to do with ourselves. Our whole sense of self-worth was tied up in it. That night, I called Lynn. I didn't even mention the hardware store. "Hey," I said, "want to go hiking this weekend? Like, A real hike, out of the city. There was a pause. Hiking? She asked. Yeah, I said. No bars, no apps, just us and some trees. Let's just do something different. She agreed. I don't know if this is the end of the story. Things haven't magically gone back to the way they were. The guys at my office are still distant. The cute barista still just takes my order. But my perspective has shifted. I'm starting to realize that I spent years outsourcing my self-esteem. I was letting the fleeting attention of strangers dictate my mood. And when they took that away, I felt like I had nothing. The silence is still there. It's still weird. But I'm starting to learn how to exist in it. I joined a book club. I started volunteering at an animal shelter on Saturdays. I'm trying to build a life that's about what I do, not about who's watching me do it. It's hard. It's a process. Jessica thinks I've given up the fight. Maybe I have. Or maybe I've just realized I was fighting the wrong war. The other day I was walking home. It was raining. I didn't have an umbrella. I was just walking, letting the rain soak my hair. I probably looked a mess. I passed Mark from analytics. He was under an awning, waiting for the rain to let up. Our eyes met for a second. He gave me a small, almost imperceptible nod. The same one he gave me that day with the box. But this time, it felt different. It wasn't an insult. It wasn't a power play. It was just a nod. Acknowledgement. Nothing more, nothing less. I nodded back, and I kept walking.